Hi there, I'm Chris for Tippy Club Gaming, and I've been asked by TT Combat to provide some painting tutorials for the latest Rumbleslam team, Purloined Puissance. The latest team joined the Diamond Oasis, and I'm going to show you how to paint the Rostani Chronicler. In this video, I'll be using these paints. Some of these paints are from my own collection, and some have been kindly provided to me by TT Combat. The Rostani Chronicler is a Sphinx cat, so we'll be painting her skin first. I've opted for Rumble skin, and I'm going to have her as a solid pattern Sphinx, but you can choose your favourite colour or pattern. Be sure to get her foot and the upper arm of the one holding the scroll. On her face there is a gold chain and a sort of headdress. Don't worry about getting paint on them at this point. We'll get a couple coats down and get a nice even colour. With Adriatic skin, we can begin getting a mid-tone for the skin. Apply this paint over everywhere we painted before, leaving some of the previous layer visible. This isn't a highlight, so you are looking at being quite liberal with the area you're painting. Next we'll highlight the skin with Halfling skin. This is a nice bright skin tone and great for bringing out details. Focus on the tops of areas like the fingers and knuckles, the tops of the wrinkles and on the ears. Don't worry if it's a bit stark because we'll bring it together in the next step. Once that's dry, thin down some flesh wash with thinning medium. I use 3 drops of wash to 1 drop of thinning medium. This gives us a bit more control over the wash because we don't want the wash to pool up in the details. If it dries like that, it doesn't look very good, so wicking away any pooling you find is important. Remember, it's better to apply a second, more targeted wash than to just bathe the model in a wash. In the ears is an area where the wash can pool, and you'll see it happening in this clip. I end up soaking it up with a clean brush before it dries. While the wash dries, let's start painting the scroll. I'll be using the recipe I always use for parchment. Begin with painting it all with Strigoi flesh. It's a very desaturated brown and a really good base for parchment. I haven't attached the cat to the model yet because it's easier to paint these parts separately. Here we can get to the back of the parchment easily, then bring the cat over and paint the parchment on that piece too. Now we can get a bit of detail into the parchment. Use raw linen and paint into the centre of the parchment. You can add some scratches and lines next to the little rips on the parchment. This is more of a mid-tone, like what we did with the skin. We'll do the same on the scroll that the little cat is holding too. We can also paint the scarf that the Chronicler is wearing with raw linen. This includes the headdress she's wearing too. You don't need to paint the edging of the scarf because we'll do that in gold later. Mix raw linen with white in a 50-50 mix and thin it down a little. Paint the parchment like we did before. This is going to create some different tones and some nice scratches for weathering. Repeat this on the parchment with the little cat too. Thin down sienna wash with thinning medium, 3:1, and paint the parchment with this. This is going to make the parchment look a bit older and give the scratches and weathering a bit of depth that we'll use when the wash is dry. Thin down umber wash and apply this over the scarf and headdress. Again, be careful with it pooling. Creases in the scarf are prime areas for this, so clean the brush off and soak it up and move it to other areas of the scarf. Allow the washes to dry and return to the parchment with raw linen. Using small brush strokes we can give the parchment a little bit of texture and create some scratches over the darker areas. Remember to do the same with the parchment that the little cat is carrying. We can also take this time to give the scarf and headdress a highlight too. Focus on the tops of the creases in the fabric and use the edge of your brush to get a nice crisp highlight. Using our raw linen and white mix once again, we'll add some more scratches to the parchment as well as a top highlight. For the highlight, get the sharp edges of the parchment, and on the rips, just use it on the bottom part of the tear. Repeat this on the little cat's parchment too. With this same mix, apply a top highlight to the scarf and headdress. Despite these having the same colours as the parchment, different wash gives them both different tones. The umber wash gives the scarf a warm natural tone, while the sienna wash on the parchment looks old due to the sepia tones in it. With Capo Red we can get the base colour down for the robe Rostani Chronicler is wearing. Don't worry about getting paint on the small circles because we'll paint them gold later, and we want to get into the small spaces around them with the red. Apply a couple layers of Capo Red to get a solid colour. Thin down some red wash and apply it over the robes. This will give us some nice rich shading to build on. Just be careful around the parchment and the scarf. Allow the wash time to dry, then highlight with Viscera Red. There are lots of folds and creases in the robe on this model, and they take the highlight beautifully. Apply a couple layers of this highlight, painting less on each layer, and you get a nice transition to the highest colour. It won't be as smooth as a glaze, but still looks great. Loading up the brush with Vexing Purple, we can paint in the sash around Rostani Chronicler's waist, and also the elbow pads. This will add a bit of darker colour on the higher points of the model, with her arm in the air. Be careful when painting near other colours, particularly around the light colours on the scarf and parchment. Using Resplendent Purple, apply a highlight to all of the purple we've painted. This is going to prepare us for the wash and the final highlight. Thin down the purple wash and apply this over the purple areas. I'd recommend applying a target wash to the elbow pad covered by the scarf and on the sash as it gets covered by that arm after this wash has dried. This just allows the shading in those areas to be a bit darker. Going back to Resplendent Purple, apply the top highlight to the purple areas. Target just the highest points of the folds on the materials here. Let's add some sparkle to this girl. Ducat Gold is perfect for the base coat. I thought a golden quill was just right for the Chronicler, but also the circles on the sash, the border of the scarf, bottom and armholes on the robe, and the brooch, chain and earrings she has on her head. Make sure you have a fine point on your brush for the gold on the head though. If you get gold on the skin, use a wet brush and paper towel to remove it. Dry the area off, but be ready to add some more skin tone if it leaves gold flakes. Thin down flesh wash and apply this over all of the gold. Flesh wash is my favourite wash to use on gold because the red tone it gives the shadows works with the yellow gold tones perfectly. After the wash is dried, use counterfeit gold to paint in some highlights and bring back some sparkle, since the wash does dull down metallics a little bit. On the quill, I focus on the central rachis and the edges of the feather. With Platinum Star metal we can apply the top highlight. I do the same on the quill as before, but in a smaller area. You want to use this highlight sparingly to maintain the look of shiny gold. Remember to highlight the gold around the arms and on the bottom of the robe too. With Throne Shade Blue we can paint in the eyes of the Rostani Chronicler along with the jewel on the brooch. Using EAA Blue we dot in the highlight on the eyes. I add mine to the top right. I also add a dot in the top right and a crescent shape on the bottom left of the jewel. Apologies that the footage is blurry here, I've had to zoom it in a fair bit. Using white, we just add a dot to the top right of the jewel, still showing the EAA Blue. With black, we can paint the claws on both hands, along with the pupils. To do this, I paint the model's left eye normally, then turn the model upside down for painting their right eye. On the small cat, we can also paint in the ink pot that it has on the head. I'm going to paint the small cat as a calico, so I'll paint it white. I've already painted my neighbour cats and the main boy Tippy, so I went with this colourful breed. We'll add patches of Adriatic skin for the light brown sections of the calico. You don't need to make these uniform as the calico pattern is pretty random. Add some patches of black to the cat too. This gives us the tricolour pattern of a calico. Let's add some text to the scroll. With Shadowland Grey, add some scribbles to the parchment. Leave some spaces between the scribbles to give the illusion of words. I also add the Tippy Club logo onto the scroll because I'm a big mark for myself, but you could add any symbol you want. Maybe one of the casinos? Once we get Rostani Chronicler on a new base, she's ready to write the Rostani into the legends of the Diamond Oasis with her lovely little calico.